Hey guys, all right, let's take a look at some NBA terms that we're going to look at here. Actually, they're just business marketing terms, but we'll apply them to the NBA for this month of looking at the NBA. First of all, we're going to look at pricing policies. This refers to how a company sets the price of its products and services based on costs, value, demand, and competition. Pricing strategy, on the other hand, refers to how companies use pricing to achieve its strategic goals, such as offering lower prices to increase sales volume or higher prices to decrease backlog. Despite some degree of difference, pricing policy and strategy tend to overlap, and different policies and strategies are not necessarily mutually exclusive. So, we're going to look at a lot of different things as far as like how the prices are set on certain things. Obviously, in the NFL, you only have 16 games, so the supply is limited. That means the price goes up. The NBA has 81 games, I believe, and so their prices are going to be lower possibly than the NFL, depending on how popular the team is. But they're also going to be higher than most Major League Baseball games, partly because basketball can only hold 25,000 people in an arena, if that, whereas an MLB team can host 45,000 fans. The perceived quality of the product as well, as like, is the team winning, is the atmosphere at the games a lot of fun. Profit motive and marketing strategy. So like, for a lot of these different organizations, obviously they don't only have to make money on the ticket that they're selling you. They're making money on the merchandise. They're making money on just a whole host of things, from television revenue to social media influences to just a lot of things, especially with the NBA and its popularity. We're going to look at around the world. They really have found new markets to go into. The competitor pricing as well. So you've got to kind of think about that as well. Like what I look at that a lot within my own sports camp businesses. What are my competitors charging? Exclusiveness of the product or brand. So, you can't bring food or beverages into a Maverick game. So they have kind of the rights to sell you that once you get in there. And also, if you ever want to use a Mavericks logo or the name or image likeness or anything regarding the Mavericks or Luca or anybody, you would have to go through the Mavericks directly. Advertising, the activity or profession of producing advertisements for commercial products or services. And so, this is pretty obvious here that this is more on a mass marketing scale. So we're going to be trying to put this out to where a lot of people will see it. And this is not something where it's like a personal selling, which we'll get to in a minute. But this could be television, it could be print, it could be lots of different ways. But this is appealing to a mass market. Visual merchandising is a little bit more of a brick and mortar kind of thing. So it's the practice of, in the retail industry, of optimizing the presentation of products and services to better highlight their features and benefits. The purpose of such visual merchandising is to attract, engage, and motivate the customer toward making a purchase. Traditionally occurs in brick and mortar stores using a blend of lighting, color combinations, and articles of decor to stimulate an observer and generate interest. It's interesting to me, even down to the science of like what music they play is helpful in getting you to purchase things from that particular store. But whenever you see these things, we talked about this a little bit in movies with the standees that were in the movie theaters themselves as well. But all of these things are very carefully orchestrated. They're put up. The lighting is perfect. The way the shoe is displayed, all of that is done in very purposeful intent. And they have studied this. This isn't just a random guess to think how much are you going to buy there. They purposely put everything in certain places. And when you get into college, you study marketing, you will learn a lot more of the individual nature of each one of these stores and how they use the marketing. Personal selling is when a salesperson meets a potential buyer or buyers face to face with the aim of selling a product or service. So, for instance, here is a picture of a guy who sells season tickets for a professional basketball team. I remember when I was buying my season ticket package from the Rangers, I called them up first, talked to them on the phone. They asked me kind of what my intent was. I wanted to buy a half season, and they had me come down to the stadium, sort of like test driving the car. They walked me over to where my seats would be. They showed me the seats. They gave me all the sales tactics that were with it. I was already ready to write the check, so they didn't really have to sell me too much. But that is a really big part of being able to get season tickets sold is the personal selling nature of that within fans.
NBA, not my not my league of choice all the time, but man, I bring you in here, sir, because I know you're an NBA aficionado, as they say. You run a podcast for the NBA, and you're an avid fan, right?
Yeah, this is basketball is my thing. It's always been my favorite sport, and I love the NBA. I've been heavily invested for 30 years. It's probably the thing that I care about most in this world, besides my kid and my wife. So it's pop culturally speaking, it's the thing that I care about the most and think about the most. I appreciate these screen titles you're giving me at the beginning with NBA aficionado and movie expert. I definitely sent those to my friends and was like, hey, you can't disagree with me anymore. I'm an aficionado level right now. And the talent that's on the floor, I mean, I have great nostalgia for all the guys that are on that graphic that you put up as well. And I think that if those guys were in the current NBA, a lot of them would adapt. You know, one of the knocks when you do like when you have the debate of who's the greatest player of all time, LeBron or Jordan, one of the things that LeBron folks will always bring up is like, well, Jordan didn't really shoot threes, so he wouldn't have done well in this era. And I always say, right, but like, we're not taking Michael Jordan from 1992, freezing him like Austin Powers, and then dropping him into 2021. He would come up in this game. You're telling me Michael Jordan wouldn't learn how to shoot three-pointers super effectively? Absolutely he was. He was a crazy person. He absolutely would have figured out how to be a great shooter. So you can't really do that. Some of these guys, though, would have trouble in today's NBA, because they wouldn't be able to stay with the speed of the game as compared to what it was in the 70s and 80s, when you could just like this guy's getting past me, I'm going to hand check him with my giant hand on his hip and basically just throw him out of bounds. And okay, cool. That's how we're playing the game. You can't do that anymore, and that would change things quite a lot for a lot of these guys.
And it's interesting. I mean,
see it in these. You talk to mothers. Doesn't matter if it's the inner city. Doesn't matter if it's the suburbs. There are parents who won't let their kids play tackle football. The talent pool is going to dry up at some point, and then there's just an oversaturation of the product. You contrast that with the NBA, and the NBA just feels like it's got so much star power right now. This is as popular as I can remember the NBA since Michael Jordan retired for the second time.
Yeah, and you think about the internet, and I'm sure, Tillman, I want you to jump in here. One of the things that both David Stern and Mr. Silver have done, Adam Silver, the current commissioner, they have emphasized internationalization of basketball and the NBA product. That is a real differentiator from the NFL. Even though the NFL's gone and tried to stage games and successfully stage games in Mexico City and London, it's not the same. American football is not the game internationally basketball is. Mike?
No, I'm in complete agreement. I'm in complete agreement that at one point there was a time when David Stern spent all his time, the former NBA commissioner, putting it into international development. You see, from Palestine to Israel to China, there are people wearing jerseys of Stephen Curry and James Harden and everyone else in between. And so you think about what the NBA has become, and how it's become a global product, and how, frankly, it's much easier to play than football internationally. It's the second most popular sport in the world next to football, soccer. So it's a definite swing. I don't know if NBA is going to eclipse the NFL in the next 3 years, but in 10 years, I'll stake my job on it. The NFL will not be as popular as the NBA in 10 years.
Black socks on and telling kids to get off my lawn, but it seems like the NBA in the 80s with Magic and Michael and Kareem Abdul-Jabbar and Clyde Drexler. I mean, I've got a Drexler poster on my wall right now. Charles Barkley, the round mound of rebound. I mean, it feels like those were is it like what my dad thought about like the 50s Yankees or something? Is it like that where we just nostalgically, maybe it's not any better, but was basketball better in the 80s, 90s, and how has it changed since then?
It's a tough question to answer. I have great nostalgia as well for 80s, 90s basketball. You know, I've never been a particularly great basketball player, but I still play every week. I love to play basketball since I was 8, 9 years old. I would do anything to play basketball. But I'm also, I mean, I'm not a big guy, pretty small. And I grew up playing a style of basketball that was, I'm not quicker, I'm not taller, I'm not really stronger than most of the guys I'm playing with. So I'm going to be physical and tougher. And that was sort of the 80s, 90s model. You know, you had, I mean, the 80s with like the Bad Boy Pistons and stuff, which every game is just just turned into a fist fight and stuff every game. And then in the 90s, David Stern, the commissioner of the NBA, he's trying to get the fighting out of the game, but they weren't doing anything rules-wise to help the offense. And so you still just had a super, super physical brand of basketball and super low scoring. You know, like the 90s Knicks would be thrilled to win a game like 70 to 65. You know, they would be thrilled by that. Now, I mean, it's almost every night you look up at the scoreboard and the halftime score on whatever game you're watching is 70 to 65. I mean, you know, it's not even close.
Right.
A lot of rules have changed on that front. The sort of proliferation of the 3-point line and the way that, I mean, I know you're a baseball guy, but the way that sabermetrics have broken into basketball, the way that they did in the early 2000s with Moneyball and stuff.
I watched the NBA since 20 years ago.
It's eye-opening and kind of surreal. 1.4 billion basketball-crazed people in a country and economy that's growing.
30 million viewers for the finals of the Western Conference last year. It's unbelievable, the passion that people have for the sport and for the NBA in China.
I've come to the world's most populous country where basketball has become big business. The NBA's fan base here has grown massively, and the league is opening experience stores and hosting preseason games. But I want to find out how one of America's most loved sports became the top sport in an unexpected country.
China is the most important international market for the NBA. This is the 26th game to take place here, but its success in this country didn't happen overnight, and it certainly wasn't an accident.
More than half of China's estimated 1.4 billion people watched NBA programming on TV in the 2017-2018 season. China's become the biggest international market for NBA merchandise sales, and the NBA is the most popular sports league on social media here, reaching more than 100 million users across its accounts and boasting video streams in the billions.
If there's a second center of the basketball universe, it's China.
That's Scott. He's the CEO of the Philadelphia 76ers, who's brought his team over to the booming Chinese city, Shenzhen. It's all part of a preseason game to promote the NBA in China, where they're playing the Dallas Mavericks.
The world is getting flatter and flatter and smaller and smaller. And having teenagers of my own, you can interchange someone from Shanghai and Philadelphia and just rotate them, we wouldn't know the difference. I mean, we listen to the same music, we watch the same basketball, we follow the same trends. It's pretty incredible.
The NBA started bringing teams here in 2004 in an effort to expand the game, and now 17 teams have made it over. But this is the first time the 76ers have played in China.
My favorite team is Lakers, but today I like the Sixers.
The Sixers, yeah, Philadelphia Sixers.
My favorite team is Boston Celtics.
Boston Celtics, but you're wearing a Dallas Mavericks jersey.
Because my boyfriend love it.
Is this the boyfriend? So he made you put on the Mavericks jersey?
Yes.
There are only 2 preseason games taking place in China, here and in Shanghai. And given the sheer size of China's population, the demand for tickets is high. This couple came to see their first ever NBA game and tell me they paid more than $300 per ticket. and the knowledge of the fans here goes deep.
And my favorite player is Kevin Garnett. So I love Boston because it's the first NBA championship of him.
Many fans I talk to don't just watch basketball, they play it too.
Good for my health.
According to the NBA, more than 300 million people play basketball in China.
Play the basketball with my friends. Yeah, it's fun, man. It's really fun.
So how did basketball become so big here? In 1979, the Washington Bullets became the first U.S. professional sports team to visit China. The trip took place just months after President Carter moved to establish more favorable relations with China.
We've had a long-term view. We've been here since the 80s, thanks to David Stern and his persistence. It's not an accident.
In the late 80s, David Stern, the NBA's then commissioner, met with China's state-run television network, CCTV, making deals to get the games on air. Fast forward to 1994, when China's Central Broadcasting Network aired every game of the NBA Finals, the first time all 7 games had been shown live in China. 8 years later, Yao Ming was drafted by the Houston Rockets. This was a big deal for propelling the NBA's growth in China. Ming was born in Shanghai and had a natural following in China. His first game he played against Shaquille O'Neal on the Lakers garnered more than 200 million viewers in China. That same year, the NBA opened an office in Beijing. From there, things really took off. The first NBA game in China took place in 2004, and in 2008, NBA China was officially founded. In 2014, NBA China and Chinese Ministry of Education partnered to grow basketball in elementary and middle schools across the country. Now, more than 4 million students are participating in classes using the curriculum they developed together. And in 2016, Li Zhongjiang bought a stake in the Minnesota Timberwolves, making him the first Chinese owner of an NBA team.
The NBA formed deals with some of China's biggest tech companies. And in order to truly understand the Chinese market, you have to first understand the importance of the mobile phone.
When you look at the Chinese fan versus the US fan, what is a key difference? Chinese fan has to watch in the morning, and the American fan watches at night.
This is Derek. He's the CEO of NBA China, and China is known as a mobile-first market.
People can watch them on their mobile phones very easily, and that's what they do, and they interact with it. And you see the amount of traffic that's going on, not just in terms of the viewing of the game, but on social media. We have close to 150 million social media followers in China alone.
In 2015, NBA formed a deal with Tencent, one of China's largest internet companies. The deal, which is reportedly worth at least $500 million, allows Tencent to carry games, highlights, and more on its platforms. And this meant even bigger reach for the NBA. That's because Tencent is the owner of WeChat, which now boasts more than 1 billion monthly active users. Meanwhile, Weibo, a popular Chinese microblogging platform, has more than 400 million monthly active users. The NBA's deal with Weibo allows it to deliver game highlights, player interviews, photos, stats, and behind-the-scenes events. Just take a look at Jeremy Lin. He's considered China's most popular current NBA player online. I say current because, well, Kobe Bryant is actually the most followed NBA star. He may have retired, but his legacy lives on here. This social media surge in popularity of the NBA, the teams, and players is prompting some to step up the way they market themselves in China.
The connectedness is understood by Ben Simmons and Joel Embiid and Markelle Fultz and Dario Saric because they have Weibo accounts. They have WeChat accounts. These guys, that's the way to connect with fans one-on-one. It gives such a competitive advantage for an organization like the Philadelphia 76ers because we create content and we can get wide and distribute it really quickly and through a lot of different ways.
In fact, Scott tells me he's hiring Mandarin-speaking Chinese staff. He hopes to have up to 6 new employees that will distribute content across Chinese networks.
It's a cultural revolution, and the Chinese fans seem to be very interested in what is new, what is interesting, and what is relevant. And NBA players are new, interesting, and relevant.
It's important to note that China isn't the only place where the NBA is operating outside of the US. The NBA considers itself an international organization already. 25% of NBA players are international. It has offices in 13 markets worldwide, and more than 60% of NBA digital visitors are actually coming from outside North America. It's just that China is proving to be just too lucrative to not prioritize.
Everyone knows how important this place is and how important these people are to the game.
Kemba Walker is a player for the Charlotte Hornets. He's come to China for a few days to promote the game. I meet him in Beijing at a new NBA Playzone store. It's one of several that have recently opened up in China with the aim of bringing the NBA experience to a younger crowd.
It's located inside of a mall, and this is the second one to open inside of China. If you want to come inside, it'll cost about $25 for one adult and one child for a day pass. But there's also annual passes available as well, which gives you unlimited access to playing basketball and a variety of other games that are meant to completely immerse you inside the experience of the NBA.
I like James very much.
I meet this NBA fan who's brought his 5-year-old son to the event to meet Walker.
If you don't really, get a chance to come out here, you wouldn't really understand, how much they love the game of basketball and how much respect they have for the game of basketball.
So how will it continue to grow?
It's just a very compelling product right now. Between sort of the media that we have, a lot of the social media that we have, opening things like Play Zone, we continue to take the brand and bring it, frankly, to our fans.
Chang says he hopes to eventually expand Play Zone stores globally. While the admission fee to come inside certainly isn't cheap, it's hard to imagine the NBA will generate sizable profits from the Play Zone stores. But that might not be the point either. After all, the benefit of exposing someone at a young age and possibly acquiring a lifelong fan could be worth way more in the long run.
How big can it get?
Okay, it can be huge. It can be huge. It's definitely a lot of opportunity, and it's only getting bigger. It's only going to get bigger and better from here. And yeah, it will.
Stuff on baseball. I look at it as pros and cons. I kind of miss the physicality of those years. Although I don't want the games to turn into fistfights. That's not, I'm here to watch basketball, not a boxing match or whatever. So, but I kind of miss.
At the same time, I don't want to see a 3-point contest, going down, cracking down the floor. Like, I mean, I miss the Hakeem Olajuwons and the, and I don't know, all the big guys that were in the 80s and 90s. It's like, where are those guys at now? I mean, like, you almost feel like, does Golden State have any big guys? Like, it seems like all they do is shoot from outside.
Yeah. I mean, it goes, like I said, it goes both ways. I have a great nostalgia for that era. And I watch every game that's on TV, Mavs or otherwise. I mean, I will always watch a basketball game over anything else if I can. I sort of lament the loss of contrast. I liked when you had a matchup of one team that has like great guards and one team that has a great center. And so you've got, the perimeter game versus the post game and that kind of stuff.
The truth of the matter is, when it comes to the games and when it comes to the season, we love the NFL. And it's not close. The NBA Finals drew 16 million viewers on average for some of those games. At times, I think it got up to 19 million. It got down to lows 13 million on some games. Well, let's call it 16 million average for all of the games of the NBA Finals per game. An average NFL game on week 3 averages 15 million viewers. So an NFL regular season game right now draws as many viewers as the NBA Finals. And if you don't find that compelling, let me tell you what an average NBA game draws. 1.4 million viewers. So you're talking about something that is 10 times the size of the NBA. NFL fandom, NFL ratings, NFL viewership, the size of the NFL business dwarfs the NBA.
How about this? When you talk about those NBA Finals and 16 million people watching on average, you got to multiply that by 6 or 7 games. It's not just one game. It's a 7-game series in the NBA.
I'm not sure that's how they do that.
But that goes to the popularity. The NBA gets people to come back and watch 7 games. Yeah. You're talking about only 1 game. And let me tell you another reason why. I made the first points. Boom. Now this is good for the knockout punch.
We'll see.
The popularity of the players. Okay, you can look at salaries, you can look at endorsements, you can look at social media. Some of the most popular players in the NFL on social media did dwarfed in numbers.
That is accurate.
Compared to the NBA. Who are the best, most popular players in the NFL? Aaron Rodgers, Odell Beckham, J.J. Watt, Tom Brady. How many people following them on social media, Instagram, Twitter? Somebody like LeBron James surpasses all of them put together.
5 big NFL stars and 5 big NBA stars, and it's easier to name the NBA stars. And part of it is because people know what they look like.
They can see them.
They can see them, and they they're just more visible out there, and they seem to get a lot more attention. And the NBA doesn't seem to have a lot of issues, and it's a younger audience, and everything is younger today.
The end result too often, I agree, because I also get kind of bogged down by how many threes get taken. The end result is often a 3-point attempt, but the basketball right now is unbelievably beautiful compared to what we had in the 80s and 90s, where you go back and watch some of the tape from that time, and there were so many times in those games where it would be like 3 people on the court total who are moving, and everyone else is just like kind of speed bump in the way at any given time. Now you have way more movement, lots of screen and rolls, which is exciting. Pick and roll is a fun thing to watch. It's also pretty easy to replicate. So with your kids, when they're in 6th, 7th grade, you can learn how to run pick and roll relatively effectively. And we run pick and roll, and I play pickup ball with a bunch of old men like me, and that's a fun style of basketball. I think it's aesthetically pleasing. It's just that we get bogged down by the way the play ends more often than not, which is a 3-point thing.
Let me read a quote from Dallas Mavericks owner Mark Cuban, comparing his league to the National Football League. And here's what he said. It's not a new concept. It's something we've heard before. He said, the NFL sells the NFL. The NBA sells its players. The NFL markets the NFL. The NBA markets its players, and players drive who we are in the NBA. You couldn't identify 90% of NFL players if they were standing right in front of you. That's a big part of their core problem. If you look at the social media following of NFL players, it's not that big. So that's an issue for NFL players. And I'm thinking it's by design from the NFL because that's what gives them more leverage. NFL players don't make nearly as much off the field, other than the quarterback and maybe one skill position player, maybe 2 per team, as NBA players do, because they just don't have the brand or visibility. That gives the NFL a lot more negotiating power, and I think that's something that the NFL should be helping their players with more. So I wanted to put together a little roundtable discussion on this. We have 2 former NFL players. We have a former NBA player, and John McEnroe, who just knows everything about everything. So Jalen, I'll just...
Good night, everybody.
I'll just start with you. When you hear Mark Cuban saying that, what do you think?
I'm like, where has he been? People have been saying this for the last 15 years.
Yeah.
Yep. Look no further than the logos. In the NBA, it's a player, Jerry West. In the NFL, it's a shield. And they always talk about making the shield great, not necessarily what's going to happen for the individuals.
Is Mark Cuban is saying that's a big part of their core problem. Does the NFL have a core problem with popularity right now?
But as you look forward, you're always trying to look to grab the new, younger dynamic. And we've talked about this with baseball. As the demos age, you have to be captivating new and younger fans, and this is the way fans connect to their sport, through individuals. They'll follow them from team to team. And one of the other big issues is you see guys in the NBA, they play for 10, 15, 20 years. The only guys you see do that in the NFL are quarterbacks, because the average lifespan of a player, 3 to 5 years, maybe 7 or 8.
Also, unfortunately for football, perception has become reality. So yes, in social media, endorsements and commercials, the NBA players just trump NFL players. But what about the things that have now caused fear? Concussions, opioids, players retiring early. Just saw Gronk do it. When a great player like him says he was crying after the Super Bowl, because he was laying in the bed and his body hurts, that does not help your sport. Look at what happened to Andrew Luck as well. And lastly, you know what else the NBA doesn't have? Holdouts. Ezekiel Elliott, Melvin Gordon. So these are all of the things that their owners have continued to push on their players and not allow them to.
Because they have guaranteed contracts.